At 3:07 a.m., the palace gates briefly opened. Surveillance footage captured the moment Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepped into a black, unmarked car alone, with no royal protection. What followed wasn't protocol. It was secrecy, urgency, and silence. Why was the future queen slipping away into the darkness? And more importantly, who wanted it hidden? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Within minutes of the footage surfacing, panic rippled through the palace like a shockwave. Phones rang behind closed doors. Advisors were summoned from their beds. Security chiefs demanded immediate explanations that no one seemed able or willing to give. Because this wasn't just a breach, it was a rupture. Catherine had not exited through a ceremonial gate. She hadn't been escorted, she hadn't been logged in any official departure record. She simply disappeared into the night. And that single image, her figure partially obscured, head lowered, moving with unmistakable urgency, ignited a storm the monarchy was unprepared to face. The first whispers were cautious, a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation. But as the footage looped endlessly across screens, caution collapsed into alarm. The car was not registered to any royal motor pool. The driver was unidentified. The timestamp was real. And perhaps most chilling of all, there was no visible sign of protection. No security detail flanking her. No advance sweep. No radio check. For a woman positioned at the heart of the monarchy's future, that absence wasn't odd. It was unthinkable. Within hours, former royal guards were speaking anonymously, describing the scene as impossible. Under standard protocol. Something had overridden every system in place. Something powerful enough to bend the palace's oldest rules. Insiders began to murmur that the footage itself was never meant to exist, that the camera angle capturing Catherine's exit had been deactivated for months, that it was only reactivated days earlier under unexplained internal orders. That realization struck harder than the image ever could, because it suggested not an accident but intention. Someone had wanted eyes on that gate. Someone had anticipated movement in the dead of night. And when the clip escaped into the public sphere, it didn't just expose Catherine. It exposed fractures. It exposed fear. It exposed a palace suddenly unsure of its own shadows. Outside the gates, the reaction was instant and ferocious. Media outlets flooded the airwaves with speculation. Was Catherine ill? Had she been summoned in secret? Was this a family emergency or the opening act of a scandal waiting to erupt? Every theory felt inadequate. Every explanation felt rehearsed. Social platforms burned with questions no official statement could soothe. People weren't just curious, they were unsettled. Because this wasn't the image of a protected royal. This was the image of a woman moving quietly, deliberately, as though she did not want to be followed or found. Behind palace walls, an emergency meeting was called before dawn. Senior figures gathered in tense silence as the footage replayed again and again. Some demanded it be scrubbed. Others argued it was already too late. According to one source, the atmosphere was not anger, it was dread. Dread that the moment had slipped beyond their control. Dread that Catherine's private decision had now become a public rupture. And dread of the one question no one in that room could answer. What had driven her to walk out alone, at an hour when even secrets are supposed to sleep, because every frame raised more doubts than it settled. Her clothing, informal and unguarded. Her posture tight with purpose. Her pace too fast for hesitation, too controlled for panic. This was not a casual departure. This was not restlessness. This was response. And somewhere between the opening of those gates and the closing of that car door, something had already happened. Something unseen. Something heavy enough to pull the future queen into the night without a word, without a witness, without protection. But the most haunting question wasn't where she was going. It was what or who she was running from. Phone logs retrieved under immense pressure reveal Catherine received a 47-second call just minutes before she exited the palace. The number, untraceable. The call, encrypted. But one palace aide allegedly heard a chilling phrase echo down the corridor moments later. She knows. The time was 2:58 a.m. when the call connected, silent, precise, and cloaked in the kind of encryption that sent chills through even the most seasoned investigators. It wasn't routed. Rough any known British network. It didn't appear in the usual security sweeps. The call should not have happened, yet it did, and within 90 seconds of ending it, Catherine was gone. Those who saw her in that brief window say she looked like she'd just been hit by a tidal wave, pale, composed, but visibly altered. As if something had been confirmed. As if something buried had just forced its way to the surface. She didn't say a word, she didn't hesitate. She just moved, swiftly, quietly, and utterly alone. Inside the palace, the mood shifted from confusion to fear. Because the call wasn't just suspicious, it was surgically timed. Placed mere minutes before her exit, it left no room for preparation, no time for interference. That's not spontaneity, that's strategy. And if someone out there had the power to pierce royal security and reach the Princess of Wales in the dead of night, the question wasn't just who it was, why. Media outlets ran wild, flooding the airwaves with theories. Was Catherine threatened? Was this a blackmail scenario? Or had someone within the palace structure used outside channels to trigger her departure? Every answer felt like a trap. What set this event ablaze was the international fingerprint left behind. Cyber teams confirmed the signal originated outside the United Kingdom. Some point to a private server in Eastern Europe, others insist it bounced off diplomatic networks linked to the Middle East. But one thing was clear, this wasn't a domestic issue. This was global. And as tension mounted, whispers began to circulate that this wasn't the first time Catherine had been contacted secretly. That she had been receiving veiled warnings, breadcrumb messages, carefully coded signals pointing toward something buried, something deliberately erased from the royal record. Theories turned darker. Was this linked to a threat against her family? A betrayal from within the firm? Or worse, was this the reawakening of a legacy left to rot in silence for decades? Rumours tied the call to a suppressed chapter of Diana's unfinished story, a series of documents never made public, detailing her deepest fears about the forces surrounding her. The idea that Diana may have uncovered something too dangerous to expose, and that her daughter-in-law was now being dragged into the same haunting spiral, struck the public like a thunderclap. The palace remained tight-lipped, issuing sterile statements that satisfied no one. But outside, a different truth was being constructed, one brick at a time, by those who believed the monarchy wasn't protecting Catherine, it was watching her. As Catherine remained silent, the conspiracy deepened. Experts speculated that the call could have included audio from Diana's voice, manipulated or real. The kind of emotional weaponry only possible through cruel precision. If the voice Catherine heard was from the past, the question becomes unbearable. Was it a warning, or a trap designed to unravel her from the inside? Meanwhile, a new narrative emerged, one that suggested the woman the world saw as the epitome of elegance and calm was now standing at the edge of a storm unleashed decades ago. Whatever she heard on that call, it was powerful enough to make her break every royal rule within minutes. Palace staff members have started disappearing figuratively and literally. One security officer suspended, 2 aides reassigned, and a key surveillance angle from that night gone. What else is being erased behind those ancient walls? In the days following Catherine's midnight departure, the palace entered a phase of eerie silence broken only by the sudden and unexplained absences of key personnel. Staffers who were known to work closest to Catherine were either transferred without notice or placed on indefinite leave. No farewell announcements, no explanation. Just vanishing names on rosters and carefully worded memos that revealed nothing and suggested everything. Then came the revelation that one of the most critical surveillance angles, the camera positioned outside Catherine's private suite, had inexplicably gone offline. Not due to a technical fault, not from malfunction, but deactivated, deliberately. The corridors of power were no longer just echoing with confusion, they pulsed with paranoia. Whispers of an internal cleanup squad began to circulate. Not part of official royal security, but a secondary team, rarely spoken of, allegedly answering to a figure no longer in active public service. Their job wasn't to protect, it was to erase. A quiet dismantling of evidence, interactions and testimonies that could tie the royal household to the unexplainable. One former footman, speaking under anonymity, claimed the walls were buzzing with threats. Staff were told to forget what they saw or risk everything. The warning wasn't subtle, the fear was real. But the most jarring account came from a junior guard who, after days of silence, finally spoke to a tabloid off record. He claimed to have seen Catherine hours before she left holding something tightly to her chest. A folder, slim, leather-bound, the kind of object you wouldn't carry unless it held something too important to leave behind. The guard's claim was dismissed by palace officials, and yet, just hours later, he was gone. Not fired, not relocated, gone. No trace, no mention. Only a growing sense that anyone who stood too close to the truth was being pushed into the void. Then came a chilling piece of the puzzle. The Queen's private quarters had been accessed in the hours before Catherine's departure. That suite had been sealed off since her passing. Untouched, locked, off-limits. And yet, records showed a single keycard access registered to a now-suspended officer. The timestamp? Just over an hour before Catherine was caught on camera. The implications were staggering. Had Catherine uncovered something hidden in that room? Was the folder she held a remnant of a monarch's final wishes, or worse, her regrets? No one would say. But the silence only deepened the mystery. Royal commentators began to draw eerie parallels to the days preceding Princess Diana's final public controversies. Back then, too, records vanished. Staff were silenced. Whispers were buried beneath polished statements and veiled threats. The similarities weren't coincidence, they were patterns. Patterns the monarchy had rehearsed before. But this time, there was one crucial difference. Catherine was not a rebel outsider. She was the future queen. And her movements, her silence, her secrecy, they weren't acts of defiance. They were signs of something far more dangerous, knowledge. Yet even as the palace raced to control the narrative, Catherine's destination revealed a truth no one could bury. After tracing the car's path through traffic cameras and anonymous tips, investigators confirm Catherine arrived at a secluded estate, one not listed under any royal property. And here's the twist. The estate once belonged to a former MI5 agent with deep ties to Princess Diana. It wasn't a royal retreat. It wasn't even an official safe house. But Catherine's unmarked car, tracked through grainy footage and intercepted license plate data, pulled up to the iron gates of a remote countryside residence buried in silence and secrecy. The land was registered under a dormant shell company based offshore, impossible to trace directly to any known individual. Yet records show it once belonged to a man whose past was anything but ordinary. Rai, a former intelligence officer deeply embedded in royal surveillance operations during the Diana years. That was no coincidence. That was a message. And Catherine, it seems, was the only one who understood it. Locals from the nearby village reported seeing the car arrive but noted no departure. The engine roared in, but it never roared out. For nearly 36 hours the estate remained sealed. No lights, no movement, no staff, only whispers of a lone figure walking along the hedges at sunrise and a delivery of tea and fruit placed by the gates and never touched. Then, just like that, the princess vanished once again, this time leaving no digital trace. But what happened within those walls during those hours would soon set fire to the royal establishment. Rumors erupted that Catherine wasn't alone, that she had come to meet someone long removed from the public eye, an elderly woman cloaked in anonymity, known among former operatives only as the Guardian of Secrets. Not a nickname earned lightly. She was once tasked with storing classified intel deemed too volatile to be stored by official channels, and during her final years of service, she had one unexpected visitor, a young Princess Diana. The belief, now gaining traction among insiders, is that Diana entrusted her with a set of documents, too dangerous to leave within palace walls. Documents that detailed not just betrayal, but a line of manipulation going back decades. Before the media could descend on the estate, a private security firm arrived, quiet, quick, and well-funded. They moved through the estate with surgical precision, seizing hard drives, notebooks, and a fireproof vault. The identity of the firm remains undisclosed, but their clearance level was described by one intelligence analyst as above ministerial. Within hours, the location was wiped clean. No traces left, no statements made. But the timing was damning, and the motive now impossible to ignore. A theory began to emerge, one that reframed Catherine not as a runaway figure, but as a woman navigating a maze laid decades before her time. That night, she wasn't escaping, she was searching, seeking answers buried beneath years of polished narratives and silenced witnesses. She was peeling back layers of a legacy Diana may have tried to expose but failed, and this time, the stakes were higher. Because the woman carrying the truth was next in line to the crown, a crown that, if tainted by the revelations she uncovered, could shatter in public view. But the real shock came days later, when someone inside the palace confessed to a plan that targeted Catherine from the start. This wasn't a breach, it was bait. A leak too perfectly timed, a camera too well placed. A former royal advisor claims Catherine was being watched for months, and this moment was orchestrated to destroy her image. But who set the trap, and why now? The truth behind the footage that shocked the nation may have been far more sinister than an isolated security lapse. According to a now silenced former palace staffer, Catherine had unknowingly been under internal surveillance long before that fateful night. Devices were reactivated, access logs were monitored, certain aides were instructed to report directly to a private communication channel, said to bypass even senior security officials. And the most damning detail? The very camera that captured her exit, the only one positioned at that angle, had been moved just 2 days prior. Not repaired, not inspected, moved. By whose order? That remains officially unanswered, but unofficially, fingers have begun to point in a direction once thought unthinkable. Sources suggest that friction between Catherine and the senior ranks of the firm had been intensifying behind closed doors for months. From her increasingly visible role in public engagements to her private meetings with key Commonwealth advisors, Catherine was no longer just the supportive spouse. She was becoming a power, and power within the monarchy is rarely left unchecked. Whispers grew louder that certain senior royals viewed her as a liability, a woman with the public's adoration, a mind of her own, and a lineage once tainted by tragedy. Camilla's circle, in particular, had reportedly become wary, using language behind closed doors that shocked even seasoned aides. One phrase allegedly repeated, "We need to tighten the leash." The leak of the footage, then, was no accident. It was part of a script, one that relied on carefully planted optics, strategic timing, and a narrative ready to be deployed the moment the image hit the screens. Hours before the footage even reached the public, the Royal Press Office had already prepared statements. Wording had been reviewed, contingencies had been drafted, media partners were contacted. The plan was to paint Catherine's late-night exit as the result of emotional exhaustion, perhaps even instability. There were even rumors, though unconfirmed, that subtle references to mental health strain had been drafted into internal memos. The goal was clear: discredit her quietly before she could speak. But what they hadn't predicted was the backlash. Instead of scandal, the footage triggered a wave of sympathy. The public didn't see a broken woman, they saw a cornered one. A woman forced into the night, a future queen who chose action over silence, and that shift cracked the entire strategy in two. Suddenly, the royal machine found itself on defense, not offense. Every calculated move now appeared malicious, every silence suspicious. The narrative had escaped their grip. But if this was indeed a trap, if Catherine was lured into a moment designed to break her, then someone knew what she might discover. Someone feared what she was getting close to, and it wasn't just her influence, it was what she might expose. A truth so explosive that efforts were made to publicly unravel her before she ever had the chance to speak. And as public sympathy for Catherine surged, another storm was brewing, one tied to a document no royal ever wanted revealed. In an eerie coincidence, or was it fate? An unsigned envelope was delivered to Catherine 2 days before her 3 a.m. disappearance. Inside, a faded letter in Princess Diana's handwriting. Its contents, now partially leaked, suggest she feared a crown built on lies and warned, she will one day walk the same dark path. The envelope had no stamp, no sender, and no record of delivery. It appeared through private channels, placed carefully thin Catherine's personal correspondence, bypassing the usual filters of palace administration. For days, no one even noticed it had arrived. But once it reached her hands, everything changed. The handwriting unmistakable, the phrasing haunting, the weight of its words impossible to ignore. Handwriting analysts quickly confirmed what insiders already knew. This was Diana's voice reaching forward through time, and it was speaking directly to her daughter-in-law. The timeline became critical. Catherine reportedly received and read the letter in the late evening hours before the untraceable phone call. That detail, on its own, was enough to send the royal household into chaos. But it wasn't just the timing, it was what the letter said. Diana's words spoke of betrayal, manipulation, and shadows cloaked in silk and tradition. She described a second wife who would grow too powerful, one who would command from behind the throne, not in front of it, and though the name was never mentioned, speculation exploded. All eyes turned toward Camilla. Diana's fear was not just of being replaced, but of what would come after. She wrote of legacy being rewritten, of secrets buried too deep, and of a woman in the future who would carry the burden she once bore. She will one day walk the same dark path, Diana warned. That phrase struck a nerve across the globe. Was this a warning meant for Catherine? Had Diana foreseen the very moment her daughter-in-law would be forced to run into the night? Or was this simply the diary of a woman unraveling in her own fear, misread, misunderstood, and now used to stoke a fire beneath the crown? The letter had not come from any archive. It had been locked away in a private vault, one that could only be accessed after a legal challenge brought by Catherine's legal team weeks earlier. No one knows what prompted the request. Some say Catherine had been digging. Others believe someone pointed her in the right direction. But what's undeniable is this: the moment the letter was released into her possession, Catherine changed. Her public appearances became rarer, her words more guarded. Something had shifted, and the footage of her vanishing into the night no longer looked like a scandal, it looked like destiny unfolding. The public was split between awe and horror. Was Diana a prophet or a prisoner of her own paranoia? Had Catherine fallen into the same trap? Or had she picked up where Diana left off, unearthing the pieces of a puzzle the palace had long buried? Either way, one thing was clear: the letter wasn't a footnote, it was a spark, one that ignited every doubt, every fear, and every question that had festered beneath the surface of the monarchy since Diana's death. As media chaos swirled and support for Catherine soared, King Charles was forced into an unprecedented confrontation. In a private emergency meeting, Charles faced his son and daughter-in-law. Witnesses claim voices were raised, tears shed, and a chilling phrase read by Catherine: "I will not be your silent shadow." With Camilla silent in the corner, the palace fracture became undeniable. The setting was Clarence House. The atmosphere volatile. Only a handful of senior royals were summoned, their phones confiscated at the door, and their presence cloaked in secrecy. But even the tightest lips couldn't suppress what unfolded within those historic walls. Charles entered with a singular demand: answers. Not rehearsed explanations, but the raw truth behind Catherine's midnight escape and the media inferno that followed. What he received, however, was not an apology, nor a retreat. It was defiance, calm, precise, and delivered with the weight of generations echoing behind it. Catherine looked the monarch in the eyes and asked a question that reportedly stopped the room cold. Did you ever read her last letter? What followed shattered every illusion of unity. Catherine revealed the letter Diana had written. She placed it physically or metaphorically between herself and the crown. William, silent until that moment, spoke only to confirm its authenticity. Charles, according to one aide, went pale. He hadn't read it. Or if he had, he was now being confronted with its words by the one woman who seemed destined to live them. Camilla, seated off to the side, reportedly shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. The power dynamic that had once favored her had tilted, and for the first time the queen consort was the one without a voice. Catherine didn't accuse. She didn't rage. But she made it clear that she would no longer be complicit in a system that suffocated truth to protect appearances. "I will not be your silent shadow," she said, voice unwavering. That sentence, repeated across headlines, reposted across continents, was more than rebellion. It was declaration. No more silence, no more stepping aside, no more protecting legacies that demanded her erasure. The room, insiders claim, fell into a heavy stillness. Lines were drawn in that moment, and they would not be erased. Camilla, visibly shaken, left the meeting early. Some say she wept, others say she stormed out. What's undeniable is that from that day forward, her public role shifted. She became more withdrawn, less visible, as if the confrontation had cracked something even the crown couldn't conceal. Charles, meanwhile, was forced to delay major royal announcements planned for the coming week, including initiatives that would have placed Camilla further in the spotlight. A rebalancing was underway, urgent, reactive, and rooted in crisis. Palace aides later admitted off the record that what happened inside Clarence's house wasn't just a family dispute. It was a reckoning, one that exposed the deep fractures not only between individuals, but between two visions of the monarchy itself. The old world of managed silence and ceremonial duty was colliding with a new force, one driven by truth, memory, and the voice of a woman who refused to be diminished. Catherine Dent walked into that room as a victim. She walked in holding a truth that no one could refute and left with something far more powerful than titles: conviction. But as royal walls cracked, the people's voice rose, ushering in a new wave of loyalty, not to the crown, but to the woman who dared to walk alone. Across Britain and beyond, the footage intended to damage Catherine became her coronation moment in the eyes of the people. Hashtags trended, crowds gathered, and in the chaos, one message pulsed louder than all: we stand with Catherine. What began as an alleged scandal transformed overnight into a rallying cry. The narrative the palace had tried so carefully to curate collapsed under the weight of public emotion. Social media erupted. Millions dissected every frame of the footage, not to shame Catherine but to shield her. Artists sketched her silhouette stepping into that unmarked car, mothers posted messages calling her the voice of dignity, and global celebrities broke silence to offer their support. She didn't flee. One viral post declared, "She rose." What was meant to be a moment of humiliation had become a revolution of empathy. The people were no longer watching the crown. They were watching the woman beneath it. British tabloids, known for their brutal swings in loyalty, quickly pivoted. Headlines that once hinted at breakdowns were rewritten to praise Catherine's quiet strength. Longtime critics began referring to her as the people's protector. She wasn't just surviving the storm, she was steering it. And while the public gathered strength behind her, something else shifted. Fear, not within Catherine, but within the institution that tried to contain her. Whispers from within the palace revealed a rising panic, advisors speaking of the Catherine effect, a new force they hadn't prepared for. Approval ratings for Charles and Camilla plummeted. Meanwhile, William and Catherine soared past them in numbers so sharp they rattled even the most veteran strategists. Camilla, once confident in her station, now faced something colder than protest: public indifference. At royal appearances, crowds offered only silence. No boos, no cheers, just chilling stillness, the kind that speaks louder than outrage. Her presence became a footnote, a fading echo beside the woman the people now viewed as the rightful heart of the monarchy. Every step Catherine took from that point forward was amplified, not by ceremony but by choice. The choice of a public that no longer cared for the rules of blood and title, but for truth, pain, and resilience. Even Parliament began to pay attention. While no public declarations were made, insiders revealed that several MPs privately questioned whether the current leadership of the monarchy reflected the modern nation it claimed to serve. Discussions became heated behind closed doors. One anonymous official was quoted saying, "We're not watching a scandal, we're witnessing a shift in power." And though no constitutional change was proposed, it was clear that something irreparable had taken root in the hearts of the people. Loyalty was no longer automatic, it had to be earned. And in Catherine they saw someone who hadn't asked for the crown, but had proven she could carry its weight. Catherine never addressed the footage. She never corrected the stories or confirmed the suspicions. Instead, she stood taller in silence than any statement could have allowed. In public appearances following the storm, her composure said everything her lips did not. This wasn't about rebellion. It was about reclaiming what had been twisted: legacy, memory, and purpose. She had become something no title could grant, a symbol not of monarchy but of meaning. And yet, as Catherine smiled for the cameras days later, no one knew what she had seen in the shadows or what she still refused to say. One final twist remains: Catherine wasn't empty-handed that night. A single leather file folder, seen under her coat in one frame of the footage. Its contents? Unknown. Its impact? Still echoing through the palace halls. It was only visible for a split second, caught by a high-resolution frame enhanced by a media outlet weeks after the initial footage broke. A slim, dark object pressed against her side, concealed under her coat, but unmistakably there. From that moment, speculation erupted. Theories swirled that the folder could contain documents long believed destroyed. Some claim it held Diana's private medical record, DS files sealed under heavy legal protection. Others insist it contained correspondence, legal warnings, or even testimony recorded before her final trip to Paris. Whatever was in it, the reaction from the palace was instant. Lawyers moved quickly, quietly issuing a formal request for the return of private family property. But Catherine never responded. No denial, no confirmation, just silence. That silence has become the most deafening element of the entire saga. Insiders now believe Catherine is holding the folder as a form of shield or sword, waiting for the right moment, the right trigger, the precise fracture in the institution before she decides to act. One former aide claimed to have overheard a conversation that ended with a sentence now burned into royal watchers' memories. "If I speak, the crown will never recover." Whether truth or myth, it doesn't matter. The fear it instilled has already done the damage. And so, beneath diamonds and duty, a reckoning waits silent, sealed and entirely in Catherine's hands. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.